March 30th. Would you please join me in the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice for all. Missoula County acknowledges that this event takes place in the Aboriginal territories of the Salish and Kalispel people. Do we have any public announcements?
Yeah, it's somewhat ironic to have to announce this right after the land acknowledgement, but as many folks in the community probably know, one of our interpretive panels at the south end of Bear Tracks Bridge was severely vandalized over the weekend. Just want folks out there to know, and rest assured we are in the process of getting that repaired and reinstalled. And if anything, I think that demonstrates the exact reason why we need that sort of education and interpretation in our public places.
Thanks, Dave. I have one too. This is a much lighter. Just want to welcome Cheryl Hartman to her first Thursday public meeting, who will be here for Thursdays evermore, we hope. So thank you. You bet. Do we have any public comment not on the agenda? Public items.
Josh, I'll go ahead and do the closed captioning comment.
Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
No worries. All right. Hello, everyone. If you're joining us for this meeting virtually today, instructions for turning on closed captioning are on your screen. If you're joining us in person, we'll be having closed captioning on all screens here in the Sophie Moise room. We do have assisted listening devices available. Please come see us if you would like one. We ask that all speakers today, please remember to speak slowly and clearly during the meeting. This helps with the accuracy of the closed captioning. There will be multiple chances during the meeting for public comment. If you're joining us virtually and you'd like to speak, you can use the raise your hand feature. If you're on Microsoft Teams, there's a small hand button. If you're calling in on the phone, you need to hit *5 to raise your hand, and then once called on, *6 to unmute. If you have any questions, please come find us during the meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyla.
One more thing. Kyla, I just got a message from Commissioner Vero. She's having trouble joining us on Teams. So
okay, I will help troubleshoot her.
I don't know what the issue is there, but
sure, I'll connect.
Yeah. And she's doing some tire recycling in the Rust Belt. Joining us. Keep her respirator on. Okay, our current claims list. Claims received as of March 1st, 2023 to March 20th, 2023 by the Commissioner's Office total $3,996,056.45. We only have one hearing today, and it is about the Mule Kick Acres minor subdivision, and our own Nick Zanettis is a planner, is going to present.
Awesome, thank you. Let me share my screen here. We'll get going. All right, so yeah, this is Mule Kick Acres minor subdivision. The owners are Mike and Rebecca Neely, and the representative is Ron Ewert from PCI. So first, going to start with showing just the general location of the project. So we are located up the 9 Mile Valley, about 3 miles north of the 9 Mile I-90 exit. You access this subdivision off of West 9 Mile Road, then Mule Kick Acres Road. So here's just an aerial of the on-site conditions currently. There is a home where the address dot is located in the left-hand corner. Sorry, not corner, left-hand side of the parcel here. Access from West 9 Mile here, and Mule Kick Acres Road kind of follows the property boundary line here, and then comes back to the homestead in the back. So the proposal is for a 5-lot minor subdivision. The average lot size is around 16 acres. The existing SFR is on lot 1, and lots 2, 3, 4, and 5 would be developed with single-family homes. Here's just some pictures from the application for what's on the ground. So on the left-hand side, you're seeing buildable areas on the upper ridge for proposed homes. There is a riparian area, a few actually, but there's a small creek on the southern end of the property, so we can see some photos from there. And then the lot 5 is kind of a more lower lying meadow closer to West 9 Mile Road, and that's what we're seeing. I think maybe actually that might not be in this photo. Sorry about that, but it is actually down here. Sorry about that. And then there's a pond that straddles lot 1 and 2. So that's what we're seeing in this bottom right-hand corner.
Like good winter skating.
Yeah. So starting with some zoning and growth policy compliance. So the density currently is 1 dwelling per 81.92 acres. The proposed density would be 1 dwelling per 16.38 acres. It is unzoned, so there are no space and bulk requirements that the subdivision needs to comply with. The growth policy for this area is the 2002 Regional Land Use Guide, and that does designate this area as open and resource, which recommends 1 dwelling per 40 acres, so it is not compliant on that aspect. Looking at impacts to local services, all allowed to be served by individual well and septic systems. As I mentioned before, the primary access into the subdivision is Mule Cake Road, which is a private roadway that is built to county subdivision standards. So it has a 80-foot right-of-way with 18-foot of surface that widens to 20 feet as you go deeper into the subdivision, and the grade is less than 10%. This is a minor subdivision, so there's no parkland requirements and no pedestrian infrastructure requirements either. And then for emergency services, this is in Frenchtown Rural Fire District, and the Missoula County Sheriff's Office is the responding law enforcement. Next, I'm just going to go to public comment. So first 2 comments are from adjacent property owners. The first was from Ernest McCollum, and he was concerned about the impact of wildlife habitat, and I think he wants the proposal to remain single-family dwelling, concerns about multiple homes on one property. The second comment is from adjacent property owner Ashley Gilbert. She also has concerns about wildlife habitat and how the subdivision would impact that habitat. Also concerns about not wanting any logging to take place, and she shared the concerns that she would want the lots to remain single-family residential. And she did provide some photos from wildlife that is on site. So elk, black bear, moose here. There's a few other ones, but these are the ones that you could see the most clearly for the wildlife in. Then we did have one comment on Missoula County Voice. That commenter commented that the proposed subdivision is in an area that has a resident elk herd and is concerned about the impact of the subdivision disturbing the habitat for the elk herd. And he also commented that they are a 20-year, that they've 20 years of experience in wildfire mitigation, and they did recommend additional requirements for wildfire protection, such as a second egress and vegetation treatment along, I believe they didn't specify, but I think they meant along the road and around homes. This was sent out to agency comment as well. We did receive comment from Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, and they commented about the importance of 9 Mile Valley and it as both wildlife habitat and also a connectivity corridor for wildlife. They did agree with the restrictions on the riparian area and the buffer, but they did encourage further restricting human impact in this area, and they did recommend that the living with wildlife and wildlife-friendly fencing standards that were in the proposed covenants be updated to the most current version of those that they provided in their comment as well. And then we did get a floodplain comment and through a floodplain analysis that was submitted by the applicant, our floodplain administrator was able to determine that there is no proposed, no flood hazard coming from the subdivision and the 9 Mile Creek floodplain. So next, I was going to go over staff findings, and I kind of just have them broken down by subject type to try to consolidate everything. So in the fire suppression plan, the proposal does include a requirement for residential fire sprinklers in any new dwelling unit, and for individual driveways to be reviewed for fire apparatus access. Both of these would be at the time of building permit submittal. We do have these confirmed as well through conditions of approval. This area is located in the WUI interface and intermixed, and it has a wildfire hazard level of high. So with that, we did suggest some recommended conditions of approval to mitigate these hazards. So we are recommending defensible space around each structure that would be required to be reviewed by the county fire inspector. A maintenance agreement for maintaining defensible space around the roads, as well as a Class A fire-rated roofing material requirement that would be confirmed at the time of building permit submittal. Then one point that's not on here that I just think my slides did not update from when I added it, but also overall compliance with our wildfire hazard area standards and our subregs. And that ultimate sign off would be by the county fire inspector at the time of final plat. And that was mainly focused around vegetation around Mule Kick Road to ensure that it meets our defensible space requirements for ingress and egress. Next, I was just going to talk about the no-build zones that are located on the plat. So any slopes over 25% are labeled as no-build zones on the preliminary plat. These are kind of more small micro areas in the greater scheme of the subdivision, not very much large base steep areas. The low-lying area on lot 5 is also labeled as a no-build zone for residential structures, and it's below a certain elevation contour where this starts, and that's to mitigate any potentially high groundwater for dwelling structures. But the applicant wanted to keep the potential for accessory structures in that meadow, such as like a horse barn or outbuilding or something of that nature. So now to talk about the no-build zones related to the riparian areas. So there is an intermittent stream that goes across the, southern portion of the property across lots 2 through 5. That area is currently labeled as a no-build zone, and we did propose a condition of approval that requires an additional buffer off of that riparian area that is currently mapped, and that was largely based off of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks comments that they provided. And then there's also a riparian area labeled as no-build zone around the pond on lots 1 and 2. And that was already on the preliminary plat, but once again, we have some conditions of approval just to confirm these all stay. And last, some staff findings about wildlife. We do, since this area is in an area known for wildlife habitat and connectivity, we do have a condition of approval that requires bear-resistant garbage containers and the aforementioned updated living with wildlife and wildlife-friendly fencing standards to be replacing the covenants with the old standards that are currently in there now. So that is the gist of my presentation here. There's 26 recommended conditions of approval in total. I think I went through a lot of the bigger ones already in the staff findings, but we are recommending approval of the subdivision, and I believe the applicant and his rep are here today as well.
Thanks, Nick. Would Ron, would you like to speak to this?
Good afternoon, commissioners and staff. My name is Ron Ewert with PCI. Here today is Mike Neely. Mike and his wife, Rebecca, purchased the property with the intent of putting a house at the end. And so they built the access there to county standards. It's a good road. And I also want to thank Nick and Tim and even Matt Heimel for all their work on this. They gave us a lot of good ideas. We'd added more protections wherever we could to try to make this as least impact of a subdivision as possible. There were some public comments, and we talked about those. And the folks were concerned that there might be more than one home per lot, and there will only be one home. There'll be nice homes. There are also the covenants, which will be revised to reflect the new FWP language, and to include the wildlife fencing and all of that, because we do acknowledge, yeah, there's definitely some wildlife that live in there. Now these homes will be more or less placed along a ridge line, and the elk and the animals sort of tend to go down along the southern part through that creek area, through where we are identifying as a wildlife corridor / area of riparian resource. So by having them up on that location, at least that's where we did the soil test and the perks. That's where we envisioned the houses to be, so that the driveways won't have to be too long, but that's definitely where I would build anyway, would be up there. And we do have the various no-build zones across the plat. Everything has to stay south of Mule Kick Road. There is some area there to the north, but it's best that that remain open. And it's pretty much common sense when you get there and you say, yeah, this is definitely the best place for a house. And then we do have the no-build zones again. One thing I tried to show in my submittal was the fact that the 9 Mile Valley, it's a beautiful place. I love going up there. But the amount of developable private land is very minuscule compared to especially the Forest Service, and there's also some state and other lands in there as well. But the mountain ranges especially to the east and the west and the north, along 9 Mile Valley, there is some settlement there. And I don't think that this would particularly be detrimental to wildlife habitat. I mean, they will continue to be there. The big issues are, how do we interact with wildlife? And whoever lives there needs to know this kind of stuff, and they need to understand where they would be living and what they need to do to allow the wildlife to continue to move through. But again, most of the wildlife is up higher up in the mountains, although you'll see just about anything down here as well. So again, thanks to PDS, and again, Mike is here if you have any questions for him. Thank you.
Thanks. Please.
Ron, before you get comfortable again, you mentioned the ridge line, or the area where homes would most likely be built. Is there any way that Nick or you could show us on the map that's on the screen?
And this would apply to lots 2 through 4 mostly. So lot 1, that's where Mike and Rebecca built their home, and that's where they live. So, and it's kind of out there in the open a little bit. Lot 1, the house might be down a little bit, but that's because the ridge sort of goes down in elevation and it ends there at lot 1. So the best location would be down there a little bit, but still up above that. There, see that big pasture there in the upper right-hand corner? That would all be left open. And that's part of lot 1. So you wouldn't really even see these houses. But yeah, lots 2 through 4, there's like a low ridge that it makes sense to build there.
And we're talking south of Mule Kick Road?
Correct.
Is it accurate, Ron, that these white dots are where the perk tests and everything were taken? Yeah,
right.
so
those were located.
that's
So
there. Yeah, and I'm trying to find the sanitary lot layout from their subdivision too, that kind of shows it at a more fine grain scale. If possible. There we go.
and you can see in the lower sort of portion where that creek is, and that's definitely an area where we wouldn't want anything to.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, thanks, Ron.
Sure.
Question for you, Nick. So when we discussed this the other day, I had a question about the genesis of some of the other lots in the vicinity that are of similar size. Were you able to find out anything on that?
Yeah, pretty much mainly old COS tracks, not many subdivisions per se. I think we identified 2 that are on the other side of 9 Mile, but of the lots that are generally the same size, they're pretty much coming from COSs. So that could be battery line relocations, family transfers. So, and since a lot of them are older, the occasional sale exemption where you could just split off one time as well. So a lot of them kind of fall into that category.
Okay.
So I don't have any real questions. It seems pretty straightforward. I just kind of want to acknowledge the on the wildlife side of it. I mean, this is straightforward. It should be. I don't really have any issues with it. And the more that we do, the fewer places there are for wildlife. I also acknowledge what you said, Ron, that most of the 9 Mile Valleys, federal public land and it's saved and there's nothing wrong with this subdivision. I don't have any issues. Just want to say that out loud, that the photos are beautiful. This is a super beautiful place. Those animals are there. That's amazing. And the more we do this, the less places there are for those animals. I just wanted to say that out loud.
Yeah, similar. I wouldn't mind living up there either.
That's it looks
but I can't
gorgeous.
move since it's outside my district. But I guess the one concern I have here, and I'd say this about any proposed subdivision that is in an area where the growth policy is significantly misaligned with what's being proposed, that's a concern. And in the case at hand, there's more considerations that need to be taken into account than just the growth policy, obviously. But I think for me, this drives home the fact that we need to get after updating our growth policy and or looking at zoning so that all of those things align with what our vision is on the ground. Presumably the 1 per 40 was designated as such for a reason, and I don't have the full backstory here, but I'm assuming wildlife connectivity could have been a piece of that. So my concern is always, when we're deviating from the growth policy, do we end up going down a path of kind of death by 1,000 cuts and just perpetuating something that we don't want to see spread out over the landscape. But having said that, I think this will be a fine subdivision.
Did I remember it that growth policy was 2002?
2002, but I think it was based off of more of the 1970s growth policy. So it was definitely very out of date.
This is crying out for an update.
Correct. Yeah, and I believe that is on the docket in the near future.
Great, thanks. So do you have any other?
No, I'm ready for
comment. If
that would totally, yeah, I guess that would be the thing to do.
Is there any public comment on this? Anybody out there virtually who'd like to speak to this? You're welcome to. Okay, I guess with that, we will have a motion.
Okay, and before I make the motion, one more question. The bear resistant containers. So is that something that's contained within the covenants, or is this?
So it's a requirement to put that provision in the covenants, and I can't remember the exact language. I believe we are supposed to follow up on that at the time of permit submittal as well.
So in terms of enforceability, once this is presumably is approved, it's in the covenants, then it would simply be a private matter to enforce that particular covenant?
Yes, yeah. For the most part, it would be.
These covenants would be between neighbors, not
Correct.
between the neighbors and the county.
Correct, yeah.
Okay.
We do have a provision that clause could not be removed without governing body approval. So it will be there indefinitely unless it comes forth to you for removal. But strict enforcement will be within the covenants itself.
Okay, with that, I would move that we approve the Mule Creek Acres minor subdivision based on the findings of fact and conclusions of law in the staff report and subject to the 26 recommended conditions of approval in the staff report.
I'll
Second.
that. Oh,
Holy
Juan's
smokes.
here. Sorry. Glad to have you here, Juan.
That's all good. I made it. Violet was able to connect me. So thank you, Violet. And I agree with all your comments. I share
nice
them as
to hear your
well.
voice.
Harry Mason moment where she pulls
She
something out.
leaps in with new information.
No, thanks all.
All right, all in favor.
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Thanks, Ron, and good luck with your subdivision. I do believe we are adjourned.